Welcome to Seattle Maritime Works. Hi, I'm Ken Saunderson with the Seattle Propeller Club, and with me today to talk about the Puget Sound Harbor Safety Committee is Patrick Gallagher, Executive Director of the Marine Exchange of Puget Sound. Hey, thanks for joining us today, Patrick.
No problem, Ken. Happy to be here.
Patrick, let's start off by having you share a little bit about the Puget Sound Harbor Safety Committee and what it's all about and the area it serves.
First off, I've been the chair of the Puget Sound Harbor Safety Committee for about a year and a half, coming up on 2 years. And I've known about harbor safety committees while I was in the Coast Guard. And they are very similar, except they do have different applications. And I'll say they're similar in their function in that it's a forum where you can bring industry and environmental groups, conservation groups, and government regulators, advisors, basically like full spectrum maritime into one space. And they can come together and talk about, some of the most pressing issues, some emerging things that are happening. And it's a space where we can decide how we want to handle things on the regional or port level. If there's something outside of regulation or policy or something that may be new, say a technology or something is happening within the port that may be a concern, we can all come together and talk about it. And we can even, come to an agreement and produce our product really is a harbor safety plan. And inside of that is standards of care. And those standards of care will deal with some very specific things. It's mostly safety, efficiency oriented. But it really is where something's happening that's not necessarily being encompassed by a regulatory body.
Hey, Patrick, talk a little bit about why the committee was formed and the amazing success that this area has really achieved in terms of safety.
Sure. So I had to look this up actually because I got curious myself. But so the Harbor Safety Committee was formed in 1997 and incorporated in 2000. So it's over, well over 20 years of ongoing service. And so I think this one started really, when you look at what was happening post Open 90 within the oil industry movement, there was a lot more attention, and I think there was it just formed as a good idea, not just here but around the country, where we could get stakeholders together and make these types of decisions. I think it being going for so long is a real testament to how valuable they are. And then talking about our safety record here locally, it's pretty astounding. Of course, accidents happen, things happen out on the water as does with any industry, but uh, the safety record here in Puget Sound is actually quite amazing. And I think it's something that not a whole lot of people know or understand. And given the thousands of vessels that have arrived here over the years, when you compare it to other places around the country or even around the world, we have an excellent safety record here in Puget Sound.
You mentioned this, Patrick, a little bit earlier about the Puget Sound Harbor Safety Committee plan that you put together. It really is the guiding light in terms of direction for this committee and the collaboration that's involved in helping to shape that plan going forward. Talk a little bit about the operations of the committee and the priorities going forward.
So there are 15 membership seats, and I'm not going to list all of them, but it's sort of what you would think of, tug and tow and ferries and petroleum industry and etc. Uh, Recreational boating, on and on. So anyone who's got a real sort of distinct stake has a seat, and we have the power to create a new seat, add alternates, whatever. It's very inclusive. If someone wants to get involved and has a particular expertise, there's generally a way for us to get you involved. And then we also have 7 advising government agencies, and that's from probably the most influential would be the U.S. Coast Guard. Captain of the Port shows up to these meetings. And then we've got Department of Ecology, the State Department of Ecology, Spills Program Director shows up, MARAD, NOAA, Navy, etc. So it's very robust participation. When I run these meetings, I'll get 70 or 80 people who show up. It's a hybrid meeting. That's the way it operates. We go quarterly, and we have a good discussion. We don't always agree about everything. Imagine that. But I will say it's a very healthy community. And I like this word inclusion because we'll let anybody come in and listen to what's going on. The only people who would have a vote are actual sitting members, but people have a say. I run the agenda, but I run that through an executive steering committee. So I'll go a month prior to, we'll build our agenda, but I accept all agenda items and we'll just sort of decide on what we're going to talk about. Generally, there'll be a presenter or two, and then we'll kind of grapple with an issue that's relevant for the time. Like right now, a good example is we're talking about creating a subcommittee to deal with cetaceans, whales, and dolphins in the Puget Sound. I'm pretty sure you're aware that there's voluntary slowdown measures that are happening within the Puget Sound, and also in Canada, that portion too. So it's something where we're thinking this might be a good touch point for industry and regulators to come together and sort of just talk about, how do we handle sightings and slowdowns and that vessel whale interaction. Like we're wondering if the Harbor Safety Committee has a piece of that. In other harbor safety committees, they've already formed this type of committee. And so we're just seeing what we can learn from others and whether or not it'll apply well here locally.
I love the collaborative process that you go through, and the public can attend these meetings, right?
Yes. Yeah. So good. Like we the Marine Exchange, if you go to marxps.com, it's under supported member sites. There's a pull down, and you can go to the Puget Sound Harbor Safety Committee page and then just sign up for the email list. And on that email list is where I will send email blasts for schedules and documents and everything. But everything's held there. Anyone who is curious about it, if you want some light reading, there's a lot of documents in there from over the years, and a lot of good resources as well. I know that people who operate here, from terminal operators to carriers and ship agents, they're very well versed in the harbor safety plan. And when there's ambiguity, I get called. So it happens. Sometimes things will happen out here that we didn't necessarily, we haven't encountered before. I'll get called and asked to weigh in. And if it's something where the Harbor Safety Committee can provide some value, I'll bring it back to the committee and we'll discuss it. And if we need to amend the standard of care, we do.
In closing, Patrick, talk a little bit more about the role of the Marine Exchange and how you operate the committee.
So the role of the Marine Exchange is we've been the administrators for I don't even know, decades, a very long time. And the Marine Exchange being a nonprofit membership association is very well suited to do this. We do this type of work for other organizations. And really what happens is we become, there are no employees of the Harbor Safety Committee. There's no executive. So we become sort of the guts. We'll do the finance. We'll, any tax filing, we'll run the minutes. I just so happen to be the chair. John Venture was the chair prior to me for 15 years, I believe. It just works well to have the Marine Exchange as in the chair, but it could easily not be me. It just so happens to be me. So really that's our role, is we just make sure the meeting is scheduled properly, the list is being managed appropriately, we have an itinerary set, the minutes get taken and recorded, and there is a repository for all of that information.
It's really a terrific story, and like you said, an amazing success record. Hey, thanks for joining us today, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I really appreciate it.